What is up, everybody? This is Sarah from Rebel with a Cause, a place where we gather to ask ourselves the question, what am I fighting for? Because it's not as straightforward as you think. Today, I woke up in a very familiar rage, a rage I feel often. And today is a very good time to talk about the difference between barriers and boundaries and use a collective lens as a way to understand the way that our own energy fields contribute to what it is that we see in the collective. The thing is that we are also responsible for creating around us a world that we are asking for, the same kind of world that we are asking for. I work with a lot of progressives and leftists, and many of those people are very good at holding people outside of them accountable for their wrongdoings and are much, much less adept and willing to hold themselves and their own lives accountable for the standards that they hold the world to. And I'm sure that that can be hard to hear for most people, but you have to understand also a lot of the folks who are dedicated to making a better world are very outward focused. They've spent their whole lives serving others. So that outward focus makes a lot of sense. But if you are devoted to a world that is safe and free from abusive behavior, then you also have to really be willing to create that in your own energy field. And so a phenomenon that I'm kind of sick to death of seeing in the collective, and this is energy, of course, again, that is an amalgamation of what each of us individually allows in our field, is the is the phenomenon of like all the unqualified losers we platform and have been platforming for a while. It's like, Trump just appointed another super unqualified person to the head of Homeland Security. I am Canadian, but of course I have to learn American politics against my free will because it impacts us so heavily up here. So Trump just appoints this another unqualified person. I wake up in a rage today, just randomly angry that people keep interviewing Timothy Chalamet, even though he's really proven himself to be just kind of another douchebag. And really, often what happens is that when there's a problem, both individually and collectively, what we're prone to doing is overcorrecting. And once upon a time, we lived in a world full of people who were gatekeeping platforms and attention, and they decided who could be lifted up and seen. And those gatekeepers were white men who often decided that they were going to continue to elevate and platform other people that looked and sounded like them. And one of the cool things that happened when the internet and social media age came to be and was started to become widely used is that anyone with talent and something meaningful to contribute could now share their gifts with the world without anyone else deciding that that was okay. So we it's not that there are no gatekeepers anymore, but what once was is no longer. And the old kind of gatekeepers are what we would call barriers. And even in our own individual lives, we can create barriers and mistakenly perceive them as boundaries. It keeps way too much out at the cost of really beneficial things getting in. Healthy gatekeeping, though, is boundaries. It's just healthy boundaries. It's just deciding that we have a certain standard for who we allow into our focus and presence, and having a certain quality that doesn't get past the door if it's not there. And the pendulum has swung so far the other way that the internet has created an absolute Wild West with the most unhinged and shitty hot takes from the least disciplined and qualified people you can imagine. And honestly, I'm so super over it. I'm so super over it. So one of the ways, actually there's two main ways we legitimize people and kind of like give them real authority. And one of those ways is with our attention, is with gazing upon them and seeing them. That makes people and ideas, it makes it real. I don't know if you've ever had the experience of someone really deeply seeing your pain, and all of a sudden this thing that was contained within you that you weren't even sure if it was true or real or other people saw it that way. When someone puts their gaze and attention on you in a deep way, part of what's so healing about that is that it makes something that was sort of in the unseen realm, it makes it seen and therefore makes it real. So one of the ways that we legitimize people is to put our attention on them. And another way that we legitimize people is to give them our presence. Either we invite them into our circle or we show up for their circles. And this becomes a real problem if you perceive yourself as a person of integrity and you keep lending your presence to someone that you know doesn't have that integrity, and you know it on some level, whether you know it outwardly and you make excuses for them or let it slide, you make them the exception for something, or you aren't questioning at all. Is this a person that has earned my presence legitimizing them? So we need to tighten and crisp up our own boundaries in our own lives so that there aren't barriers keeping out people who have earned it, but we have boundaries to keep out people who haven't earned it and let in the ones that have. So the three things that I look for, in terms of my quality standards to legitimize people and to give them my attention, awareness, focus, and presence, is number one, discipline. Do these people in their field, again, we have a lot of grifters, and in this case, because I'm weaving the intersection of collective and individual, I'm talking about institutions, right? So, and professionals who present themselves as wise and as counsel for you, or as a model for how to live and how to be. So does this person have the discipline in the field in which they are teaching, on the platform that they have? Have they shown up day in and day out to devote themselves to their craft, even on days when it's not good? Folks who have this is what virality has destroyed, is discipline, because you can go viral on vibes with absolutely no proof that you have discipline in that field or in that craft. And folks who have discipline have boundaries, because you can't be, what discipline means is an ability to delay gratification. Discipline is like, I'm going to show up, I'm going to keep showing up day after day after day, even if I don't get that immediate gratification, because I believe so much in my craft and in what I am doing. And that doesn't mean showing up day after day to the platform, because that is where people are most easily reinforced. That means showing up day after day to the discipline that they are trying to teach you or model or demonstrate. Okay, so that's one thing I look for, is discipline. Is this person showing up on bad days, and do they have the ability to delay gratification and reinforcement? Then okay, like that's someone who I might want to listen to. Accountability. Do these people, are they accountable to someone? Right? Like, this is who I will absolutely never listen to, are people that haven't sat with other human beings day in and day out, thousands of hours, to hear their stories and be with them through the non-glamorous moments and try and understand and untangle the human condition with them. This is why I would never be caught dead listening to Mel Robbins. Not only is she a lawyer and just like not qualified for life advice, but she does not have the thousands of hours that many of us have sitting with real people to understand the nuances and complexities of it, what it really means to be a human. And you can see it. You can see it in her content. Like there's no understanding of the nuances of sitting with people in their complex trauma, in intersecting interpersonal and systemic trauma. Like absolutely not. I will not ever take wisdom and advice from someone who hasn't sat with real people through the mess and the difficulty. I literally have no time for that, because you have to be accountable for your shitty advice when you sit down in front of a real person and look them in the eye. Also, does this person have any kind of oversight in their profession? You know, I used to be so fucking annoyed with the fact that I had to register with the College of Social Workers. It felt so colonial. But you know what? Accountability and oversight in this day and age can be such a blessing. And even as I came up as a social worker in the nonprofits I used to work for, there were people to fucking answer to. You had to explain your clinical rationale. You had to explain your intentions. You couldn't just go willy-nilly with people. So that's another thing I look for. I don't give my focus, attention, or presence to anyone that doesn't have real life accountability, either to some kind of professional body or to human beings. And does this save people? Does this mean people are automatically super ethical? Of course not. But it certainly is a guardrail. Okay? And the last thing I look for in a person, and this can be harder to vet, admittedly, online, is maturity. And this is why I actually focus a lot more of my presence and attention offline. I'm not on social media anymore. I prefer to focus my attention and presence to the real relationships in my life, because to me, I need to vet who has the emotional maturity to be worthy of my focus and my presence. When someone has emotional maturity, what that means is that they derive power from within. They have their own sense of internal power and agency, and what this means is that they don't need to use others to get ahead, because what they need is within them. They collaborate with others to build a vision, sure, but they don't use and extract from and exploit people. So those are the three things that I look for before I would even dream of giving my attention or presence to anyone. And what I'm asking of people is to, again, if you want a certain standard in the White House, if you want a certain standard of who the fuck is giving out information, advice, and points of view, really start to look within your own life and ask yourself, like, where am I legitimizing people who can't demonstrate through real action, accountability, discipline, and maturity? And by the way, accountability, I just want to make this note, because a lot of people pat themselves on the back for holding people accountable when all they really did is give feedback, because accountability means changed behavior. So if you are holding someone accountable, which just means getting stuff off your chest, and they make absolutely no changes to move the needle, that's actually not accountability. That's just giving someone feedback. So crisp up your own standards, because I guarantee you that this energy in your field, if it's leaking out, which means that you don't have the right boundaries and standards around your own core of existence, it leaks out and creates this fucking Frankenstein-like monster of the most untrustworthy, unqualified people with platforms. And we really, really, really need to start setting healthy boundaries with who is able to share. And again, we don't want the barriers we had before, where we were keeping out the right people. now the pendulum is swung, and for some reason it's like we haven't quite gotten to that point where we can keep out the wrong people. And from a perspective, like, this is what I'm always wanting to ask. This is the question I'm always pondering. When we say, what am I fighting for? I can guarantee you that if you are fighting for higher standards, discipline, qualifications out there, but you aren't doing the same for your own energy and your own life and your own inner ecosystem, your own little community of beings inside of you, then you might as well be flushing energy down the toilet. You know, it's like energy. What the capitalist demons don't want you to know is that actually money is not the ultimate currency, it's energy. This is why anyone who has an empire has been exploiting the life force energy of people over time. And so energy is the ultimate currency. And if you are fighting out there for something that you are not willing to fight for in your own life, a standard of quality and discipline and behavior, then what's the freaking point? It's all leaking out all over the place anyway. So I want you to be able to fight in your own life for the same things that you're fighting for out there. Okay? So I'm new to YouTube. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel. And also, I have a newsletter that you can subscribe to at the link in my bio. And what I think, because my YouTube channel is new, what I do think I might try to do is focus a little bit more on the collective pieces on YouTube, and a little bit more on like the individual interpersonal pieces on my newsletter, because there is an overlap. There's always a bridge between polarities, right? There's always a synthesis. So if we have over here systemic and collective and over here individual, these are polarities that do have a middle point and a synthesis, and responsible folks are always going to be interested in taking the absolute utmost responsibility for themselves at the individual level, while not ignoring the systemic trauma that has been shoved down our throats since the day that we were born. It's a both and situation. So what I'm hoping to create in the both and of that is like try to talk a little bit more about collective stuff on the videos, and a little bit more individual and interpersonal relational stuff in my writing. Obviously there's overlap. There's going to be in both, but subscribe to the channel and subscribe to the newsletter, and I will see you probably once a week, but let's hope more. And I always want to leave you with the question, what am I fighting for? To ask yourself. All right, cool. See you next time.